Justice for baby Cohen.
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 Hey everyone, my name is Valencia Wiley. I'm the mother of baby Cohen. I watched my baby take his first breath, and I watched my baby take his last breath.
There are days that look like any other day. A Sunday afternoon in a small Mississippi town. Temperatures pushing into the 90s. Families running errands. A mother holding her baby. The kind of scene that plays out in parking lots across America, hundreds of thousands of times a day, without incident. June 14th, 2026 started that way in Senatobia, Mississippi. It did not end that way. By the time the sun began to dip toward the tree line west of town, a 1-year-old boy named Kohen Wiley was dead, shot by a police officer responding to a call about an alleged box of diapers. He had just learned to walk. He loved to pretend to mow the lawn with his toy lawnmower. His family says he had a smile that filled every room he entered. He was 13 months away from his second birthday. What happened in that Walmart parking lot would ignite a national conversation about use of force, about policing of black communities, about whether a shoplifting allegation can ever justify firing a weapon into a car carrying a baby. And it would raise a question that, as of this documentary's recording, still has not been fully answered. How does a 1-year-old child lose his life during a police response to an alleged shoplifting call? This is the story of Kohen Wiley, who he was, what happened to him, and why so many people across America refuse to let his name be forgotten. Kohen Wiley was born on November 1, 2024, at Northwest Mississippi Regional Center in Clarksdale, Mississippi. He came into the world weighing 5 pounds and 7 ounces. From the first moment, his family says, he was full of life. His maternal grandmother chose his name. That detail, so small, so ordinary, is one of the things his family shared publicly in their grief. A grandmother choosing a name for a grandson she would only know for 13 months. His mother, Valencia Wiley, known to family and friends as Pumpkin, described the bond between her and Cohen as inseparable. She watched him take his first steps. She held him the day he came into the world. And she would be holding him on the afternoon she watched him leave it. His father, Davon Williams, was so overcome with grief in the days after the shooting that he was unable to speak at a public press conference. He sat quietly. He did not have to say anything. The grief on his face said everything. His grandfather, Carlos Haynes, spoke to the Associated Press in the days after Cohen's death. He described him simply and heartbreakingly, a happy baby who had his life cut short. Someone ended it all before it could even start, Haynes told the Wire service. Haynes had planned fishing trips. He had imagined watching his grandson grow. When asked about Cohen during a press conference, he struggled through his emotions and said, "What hurts me most is when my granddaughter asks where he is. She's only 3 years old, and to see her play alone, I just want justice for my dude." His grandmother, Veronica Robertson, said something at a press conference that silenced the room. "That baby meant everything to me. He's all I had. My only and my first grandchild. I took his mother to the hospital to deliver him." The family wrote in his funeral program that although his time on earth was brief, his life was filled with, and these are their words, laughter, love, and light. He loved playtime with his mom. He loved his toys. He loved that little toy lawnmower. Kohen Wiley was not a symbol when he was alive. He was a baby boy, a toddler with a big smile and a favorite cartoon dog, a child whose cousins were waiting to grow up beside him, a little person just months from turning 2 years old. That is who he was. And that is who was sitting in his mother's arms on a Sunday afternoon in June when everything changed. Senatobia is a small city of roughly 8,500 people in Tate County, in the northwestern corner of Mississippi, approximately 40 miles south of Memphis, Tennessee. It sits along U.S. Highway 51, a long, flat stretch of road that connects the Mississippi Delta to the Tennessee border. By most measures, it is a quiet community. Its crime rate is below the national average and among the lowest in the state. About 40% of Senatobia's residents are black. The police department employs approximately 30 officers. On the afternoon of June 14, 2026, Kohen Wiley's mother, Velicia Wiley, went to the Walmart on Highway 51 with her son and a family friend. According to what the family has publicly shared, they were there to purchase diapers. What happened inside the store and whether a crime occurred is one of the central disputed facts in this case. Here is the official version. According to the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, which released a public statement following the shooting, Senatobia police officers and Tate County Sheriff's deputies responded to a reported shoplifting call at the store on Sunday afternoon, June 14th. MBI said that when officers arrived, they encountered, in their words, 2 subjects and a juvenile child fleeing from the store into a vehicle. Note the word juvenile. Police initially described Kohen as a juvenile. He was 1 year old. The agency said officers attempted to stop the vehicle, but the driver drove in the direction of the officers, almost striking one. At that point, according to MBI, an officer discharged their weapon, firing into the car. The driver then drove the vehicle to a nearby hospital, and here is the family's version. Kohen's mother, Velicia Wiley, gave a very different account in a video released through her attorneys. She said she and her companion were leaving the store. She says her friend had not shoplifted. Her family later publicly stated they had a receipt for the diapers. She said that as officers approached, she realized the situation was escalating and that she did something any mother would do. She raised her baby. "I raised my baby up trying to show them that he was in the car," Wiley said. She says she wanted the officers to see there was an infant present. She says they fired anyway. As for the claim that the car drove toward an officer, Wiley said, they tried to say that she forcefully was trying to drive and hit them, but they were all on the right side, and she was driving toward the left. The driver of the vehicle has been identified in reporting as Latoya Farrell. She was also struck by gunfire and was critically injured. No charges have been filed against the driver or against Kohen's mother. Velicia Wiley herself has not been charged with any crime. At approximately 2:05 in the afternoon, shots were fired into the vehicle. One bullet struck Kohen Wiley in the ribcage. He was seated in his mother's arms in the front passenger seat. According to his mother's account, he was shot as the vehicle was backing away. A photograph that circulated in subsequent media coverage showed bullet holes in the windshield on the passenger side, the side where the mother and her baby were sitting. No law enforcement officer was seriously injured. The moments after the shots were fired were chaotic and desperate. Latoya Farrell, the driver, had been hit. She was critically injured, but conscious enough to do the only thing that made any sense in that moment. She drove. She drove away from the parking lot, away from the place where her friend's baby had just been shot. She drove toward help. The vehicle reached a nearby hospital. Kohen Wiley was rushed inside. He was pronounced dead. His mother had been holding him. She had watched him take his first breath. Now she watched him take his last. The officer who fired the weapon has not been publicly identified by local or state authorities as of the time this documentary was recorded. The Senatobia Police Department placed the officer on administrative leave following a meeting of the mayor and board of aldermen on Tuesday, June 16th, 2 days after the shooting. What we know about that officer comes largely from community advocates and news organizations investigating the case. According to reporting by the Chicago Crusader, the officer was hired by the Senatobia Police Department on March 4, 2025, roughly 15 months before the shooting. He was promoted to the rank of sergeant just 6 months after being hired in September 2025. Days before Kohen's death, a fellow officer had filed a written complaint against him for allegedly using racial slurs inside the precinct. That complaint had not been adjudicated when Kohen Wiley was killed. The independent autopsy commissioned by the family and conducted by Washington, D.C.-based forensic pathologist Dr. Roger Mitchell added a significant new layer to the dispute. Attorney Ben Crump, presenting the preliminary findings at a news conference in Senatobia, said Dr. Mitchell determined that Kohen died from a gunshot wound to the torso, and that the trajectory of the bullet, along with fragments consistent with the type of tempered glass found inside windows, rather than the laminated glass of a windshield, suggested the shot entered from the side of the vehicle. If accurate, that finding directly contradicts the official account that the vehicle was driving toward the officer when the shot was fired. Crump stated it plainly at the news conference. Why would you shoot into a vehicle from the side where you're clearly not in harm's way? The Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, citing its ongoing investigation, has not publicly responded to that specific question. The body camera footage, the dash camera footage, the Walmart surveillance video, all of it remains unreleased, and that is where the answers may be hiding. News of Kohen Wiley's death did not stay local for long. By Monday, June 15th, it had begun spreading across social media and into national news feeds. By Tuesday, it had reached the desks of editors at the Associated Press, NBC News, ABC News, and news organizations across the country. And by Tuesday evening, approximately 200 people gathered outside Senatobia City Hall, demanding answers. They held signs. They called his name. They wanted to know how this happened. They wanted to know who pulled the trigger. And they wanted to know why a box of diapers had led to a baby's death. The city's mayor and board of aldermen met that same evening. At the conclusion of the meeting, they announced the officer had been placed on administrative leave. His identity was not released. Later that same night, the crowd moved to the Walmart parking lot where Kohen had been shot. And there, the situation intensified. Officers arrived in riot helmets and gas masks. They formed a line at the front doors of the store. And then, in a moment that would itself generate national headlines, they deployed tear gas on the crowd. Community organizer Markel Bridges, president of the Building Bridges Coalition, described the demonstration as peaceful. Others confirmed children were present in the crowd when the tear gas was deployed. The Walmart temporarily closed that night. A memorial had already been placed near the spot where Kohen was killed. Stuffed animals, photographs, flowers, a sign reading "Forever One." By Wednesday morning, the store reopened. The flowers were still there. Civil rights attorney Ben Crump formally announced his firm had been retained by the family. Crump, who has previously represented the families of Trayvon Martin, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and many others, released a statement that cut to the heart of what the family wanted the public to understand. A 1-year-old child is dead because police officers in Mississippi opened fire on a car in a crowded Walmart parking lot, Crump said. Kohen Wiley was a baby. His mother, who has not been charged with any crime, says she was trying to communicate to officers that there was a baby in the car. They fired anyway, leading to the death of an innocent 1-year-old. We intend to seek justice for baby Kohen and the life that was stolen from him. Protests continued for days. The Building Bridges Coalition says demonstrators shuttered the Senatobia Walmart 3 separate times in the 9 days following the shooting. A national Walmart boycott was called. Community members across the country said they would not shop at the chain until accountability was delivered. A woman named Betterston Wade drove from Jackson, Mississippi to attend one of the protests. She knew the pain of losing someone to police violence. She had lost her brother. She had lost her son. She came to Senatobia and she said, "We are in the 21st century, not the 1960s, and we are still dealing with unjustified police violence." On June 27th, 13 days after the shooting, Kohen Wiley was laid to rest. His casket was lined with images of Bluey, the cartoon dog he had loved. A small toy lawnmower sat among the flowers. Stuffed teddy bears were tucked between arrangements of baby blue, navy, and yellow. On multiple screens inside Hosanna Family Worship Center in Pope, Mississippi, there was a single projected image. A little boy in gingham overalls, standing beside Bluey, smiling. The casket was carried out by 6 small children dressed in white and navy. A white horse-drawn carriage waited outside. His parents, Valencia Wiley and Davin Williams, rode atop that carriage, following their son. The Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, the MBI, is the state's primary law enforcement investigative body. It is the agency responsible for looking into officer-involved shootings when local departments cannot or should not investigate themselves. In this case, 5 MBI agents were assigned to the Kohen Wiley shooting, working in coordination with the State Attorney General's Office. Mississippi Department of Public Safety Commissioner Sean Tyndall made a public statement on the steps of the Tate County Courthouse on June 16th, 2 days after the shooting. He pledged transparency. He promised the investigation would be thorough. He also announced that no video evidence would be released until the investigation was complete. His reasoning was this: sometimes when video evidence is released early, witnesses won't come forward because they feel like the case has been closed at that point. That explanation satisfied some people. It satisfied very few of the people standing outside the courthouse that day. The evidence that has not been released includes body camera footage from the officer or officers present, dash camera footage from responding police vehicles, and the Walmart surveillance footage from the store's parking lot camera system. If that footage exists and is intact, it may show, in detail, exactly what happened in those few seconds between the approach of police and the firing of the gun. The family's attorneys have demanded the release of all of it. Ben Crump has called on both state authorities and Walmart itself to make the footage public. As of the recording of this documentary, none of it has been released to the public. There is also the matter of the officer himself. As previously noted, the shooter was hired in March 2025, promoted to sergeant within 6 months, and had an unresolved internal complaint for allegedly using racial slurs filed just days before the shooting. Bridges, who says he personally reviewed the complaint, described it plainly. He used racial slurs in the precinct, and other officers filed a complaint. That is not an allegation. That's confirmed. The Senatobia Police Department has not commented specifically on the internal complaint. The independent autopsy commissioned by the family represents another significant piece of the evidentiary puzzle. Attorney Van Turner told reporters the evidence would show this vehicle posed no threat, and the force used was excessive. The family's legal team has formally submitted the independent autopsy findings to investigators. The MBI has not publicly confirmed or rejected the conclusions drawn from that autopsy. Their investigation will ultimately be submitted to the State Attorney General's office, which will make the determination of whether criminal charges are filed against the officer. That process, according to Commissioner Tyndall, has no defined timeline. Community members have expressed mounting frustration with that ambiguity. Patrick Lumumba, who had been raising concerns about the Senatobia police force before the shooting, told reporters, "There's righteous indignation because we're not going to lose this one." At Cohen's funeral, Attorney Van Turner offered a warning and a charge to those gathered. After today, the cameras will go away. The news reporters will go back. And it'll only be you and them and Senatobia. So it's up to Senatobia to stand up for this family. The death of Kohen Wiley did not happen in isolation. It happened in a community with a documented and contentious recent history with its police department. In 2023, Senatobia police drew national criticism after officers arrested a 10-year-old black child for urinating behind his mother's vehicle outside a local business. The child was handcuffed and taken to the precinct. A photograph from that encounter circulated widely. Police Chief Richard Chandler publicly acknowledged that the officers violated their training on how to deal with children. One officer involved was no longer employed by the department. The child was later referred to youth court. A judge initially ordered 3 months of probation and a book report. In February 2024, that punishment was dismissed. The same department, a different child, a different year, but the pattern was already there, and Senatobia residents knew it. Renee Jones, who grew up in Senatobia, said the 2023 arrest, combined with Cohen's death, made her genuinely afraid for the younger members of her family still living in the community. Senatobia could be a good place, she said. It just needs the right people running it. Shirley Harden, who lives in nearby Como, said poor relations between black residents and Senatobia police have been building for years. It's not new, she told reporters. We've known. The broader questions raised by the Kohen Wiley case are not unique to Senatobia. They appear in the national conversation every time an officer-involved shooting results in the death of an unarmed person, or in this case, a baby. When is the use of deadly force appropriate? What training do officers receive for volatile, fast-moving situations in public spaces? What standards govern when an officer may fire into a moving vehicle? And when a child dies, when the person who cannot possibly be a threat is the person who is killed, who is held accountable, and how? On the specific question of firing into a moving vehicle, many law enforcement policies across the country have in recent years moved toward restricting or prohibiting officers from shooting at moving vehicles, recognizing that such shots rarely neutralize a threat and frequently injure or kill unintended people. Whether Senatobia's written policy permitted or restricted such firing, and whether the officer's actions were consistent with that policy, is something the MBI investigation may ultimately address. But here is the tension that runs through this entire case. An official account says a vehicle drove toward an officer, putting the officer's life at risk, and the officer responded with deadly force. A mother's account says the car was moving away. The bullet holes were in the passenger side, and she had raised her baby in the air to make sure the officers could see him. An independent forensic pathologist says the wound is consistent with a shot fired from the side. These accounts cannot all be true simultaneously, and the evidence that could resolve the contradiction, the body cameras, the dashboard cameras, the parking lot surveillance from one of the most surveilled retail chains in the world, has not been released. That is the central unresolved question of the Kohen Wiley case. Not just who fired, but what the evidence shows about the seconds before that trigger was pulled. There is one more detail worth sitting with. A community activist who reviewed the early police communications noted that the initial police description of Kohen, the person inside the vehicle who would be killed, used the word juvenile, not infant, not baby, not toddler, juvenile. It is a legal and procedural word. It carries a very different mental image than a 1-year-old child in his mother's arms. Whether that word choice reflects routine procedural language or something more troubling about what officers understood before they fired is, as of now, unknown. On June 27, 2026, a white horse-drawn carriage carried Kohen Wiley to his burial in Pope, Mississippi. His parents rode atop that carriage. His family walked behind it. 6 small children dressed in white and navy had carried his casket from the church. Inside that casket, placed beside the little boy his family was burying, was a stuffed bluey. His mother brought one too. She walked into the church holding it. The Mississippi Bureau of Investigation is still working. The body cameras have not been released. The Walmart surveillance footage has not been released. The officer has not been named publicly. No charges have been filed. Senatobia is a town of about 8,500 people trying to reckon with what happened on a Sunday afternoon on Highway 51. Some residents are angry, some are grieving, some are waiting, some are marching, some are sitting in churches, praying for a justice they are not certain will come. The family of Kohen Wiley is doing all of those things at once. The details of this case are contested. The investigation is ongoing. Verdicts have not been reached, and conclusions have not been drawn that this documentary could responsibly report as settled. What is not contested is this. A 1-year-old boy named Kohen Wiley went to a Walmart with his mother on a Sunday afternoon in June. He did not come home. His grandfather had planned fishing trips for him. His cousins were waiting for him to grow up. His mother had watched him take his first steps. He had a toy lawnmower, and a favorite cartoon dog, and a grandmother who had chosen his name. He weighed 5 pounds and 7 ounces the day he was born. He was 1 year and 7 months old when he died. Accountability is not something that arrives automatically in America or anywhere else. It requires institutions to function. It requires evidence to be preserved and examined honestly. It requires transparency, the kind that doesn't wait until everyone has stopped paying attention. It requires someone to ask the hard questions and then to wait and to keep asking. What the community of Senatobia is demanding, what Kohen Wiley's family is demanding, is not unusual or radical. They want to know what happened. They want to see the evidence. They want the system to work the way it is supposed to work when a child dies at the hands of someone entrusted with public safety. They want to know that his life mattered. Every life matters. Every baby brought into this world matters. Every grandmother who chooses a name for a grandchild she will bury 13 months later carries a weight that no one should have to carry. Justice for baby Kohen, whether it comes and what form it takes, is a story still being written. We'll be watching.